There's a looming cloud that hangs over anime games, which suggests the quality of the gameplay won't live up to the hype of the source material. The ultimate reason for this typically boils down to budget and fanbase. Anime watchers aren't necessarily gamers, so systems remain relatively accessible in these types of titles. However, in recent years, this has had the opposite effect. As the world of gaming and anime blend further together, developers should probably invest more in these titles. I mean, I like a good arena fighter every now and then, but there's gotta be a different genre for these franchises to venture into. When Bandai Namco announced they would be investing in the Sandland IP, which is a one-volume early 2000s manga from Dragon Ball creator Akira Toriyama, I was actually pretty skeptical. Sandland is a very obscure adventure that doesn't really follow any shonen rules. Its protagonist, a kid demon prince with a conscience, is so unassuming that one would probably write him off almost immediately. But that's the genius of Sandland and these characters. This unassuming adventure evolves into an epic quest fueled by vehicular warfare and gorgeous environments that evoke wonder upon every new discovery. The result is a sum of many parts, but consider the bar raised for anime licensed games.
Well, so it goes.
Sandland mostly follows the original manga, but includes some original plot lines and characters that are depicted in the currently airing anime. Interestingly, the game expands on many of the scenes from the show, so it's possible to enjoy both without feeling like you're simply replaying something that you've already seen. The adventure begins with a worldly tragedy, as the acts of humans and their desire for power turn the region to sand. As humans do their best to adapt, it's clear that water is of the utmost necessity, and there isn't much left of it, even though the king seems to be doing alright. So there's a clear power struggle, but we begin our adventure 30 years after what is believed as humans' greatest mistake. But I'll leave that for you to figure out. The story opens up with an introduction to the demon prince Beelzebub, along with his friends as they go out to steal some water. A human named Sheriff Rao arrives at the demon kingdom to request help as he searches for a legendary spring. While Beelz is keen on helping, he has to ask his dad first for permission. Although he has many demon friends, he chooses Thief to come along as well, and the trio sets off into the desert in search of water. The hope is that they may bring peace to the two nations, as humans and demons don't really communicate. Along the way, they meet a new character, Anne, who's on her own mission but is also really good at working on mechs. This unlikely group gets mixed up in events far greater than they could have ever imagined, and it evolves into a truly epic adventure. Each character is so well-rounded with unexpected depth. 20 hours in, new elements of the character or personality are explored. The narrative becomes a significant driving force for the entire experience, delivering epic moments of characterization and genuinely well-written scenarios for even the supporting cast. Everything comes together so naturally, and we're left with these relatable situations that you didn't expect to encounter when playing the game as a tiny pink shirtless demon. Themes of discrimination, loss, determination, and overcoming enormous odds are explored across each act, with plotlines that wrap up wonderfully by the ending credits. This is further enhanced by the various side quests that aren't all simple fetch quests and do well to illustrate the struggles of living in these conditions and how they adapt.
Hey, Ugly, if you wanna run now, I'll let you go. How about it?
Prince!
As you make your way through the campaign, you'll eventually reach Spino, which adds a city building system to the game and is a great way to expand on your materials and resources. While it is possible to ignore this system for the most part along with a few others, it greatly enhances gameplay and encourages you to see every inch of the map. Many side quests lead to new citizens moving into Spino and setting up shop. This seems to be optional because by the end of the game I did some cleanup and found I missed a surprising amount of citizens. Still, they add new shops and ways to gain materials, which can then be used to create and customize your vehicles, which becomes the real star of the game. You see, there's a lot to do in Sandland. While you'll always know where to go to progress the main campaign, there are also a ton of events listed on the map, and even more available if you take on specific requests. There's honestly no shortages of ways to spend your time, whether that be simply exploring and gathering materials, taking out secret enemy bases while fixing radio towers, or even crafting and customizing vehicles. I was never bored and always had goals to focus on. What's incredible about this game though is that this experience also extends into Forestland, which only adds a completely new layer to the overall experience. Thankfully, the team has included a speedy fast travel system, which eliminates traveling by vehicles to places since there are plenty of large-scale sand wars waiting for you throughout the campaign. While playing, you'll eventually reach dungeons, which are pretty big. To be honest, every environment, city, and dungeon is enormous. enforcing this feeling that the tiny BLs can overcome anything as he tackles every problem in sight, even when the odds are stacked against him. While I'd say the dungeon design is equivalent to what we've seen in other adventure games with similar halls and rooms, the way you approach them changes since you can choose which vehicle to use in battle, and yes, some are better suited for various situations. There's also hand-to-hand combat, which actually has more depth than I thought it was when I first started playing. Still, even with the customization skill tree and added partner abilities, it's nothing special.
Man, he's tough. Don't back down now!
So annoying.
Are you a shark?
BL's combos can be extended though, and he even gains access to new specials throughout the game, so I wouldn't call combat dull, but the vehicle combat definitely takes the spotlight here. While you have your basic vehicle types, there's a ton to choose from as you progress through the game, and even mech-light suits that you can jump into. However, I found fun in acquiring the late game vehicles because they were a surprise, so I won't spoil those types here, but I'd say that the vehicles in the first half of Sandland are similar to new abilities in a Metroidvania. As you unlock new bots, you can do things like float on water, jump large-scale gaps, or reach high ledges. Along with this, you can customize each of your vehicles with new decals, weapons, loadouts, and specials, but these require materials. Throughout the game, you'll naturally collect materials from chests, mining, and fallen enemies, while you can also buy some. Money is spent quickly as it is required for each added customization. This leads me to my biggest criticism. The map doesn't display enough information for the completionists out there. First off, the radar map on the screen isn't helpful at all, and thankfully, you can turn it off. Next, the various caves and high ledges that contain materials also show up on the map even if you cleared them already. This caused some confusion because later in the game I was entering caves that I had already cleared. An indicator would have saved me time. Further, dungeons have a lot of chests, but I never knew how many chests I was missing, or if there was something important that I skipped. I just wish that this information was conveyed to the player. Now, this is a game that can come across as fairly easy, and if you're getting through fights too easily, I encourage you to turn up the difficulty because that's where the fun begins. Utilizing strategic moves in some of the large-scale tank battles is easily the funnest thing about this game. Once the campaign is resolved, you're left with the Metal Max meets Mad Max experience, where you can push these tanks to their full potential. It honestly made me want an online option so I could battle my friends, but the tough enemies encountered were formidable enough. Graphically, I found Sandland to mirror its anime adaptation and the original designs of Toriyama-san. This is a very pretty game, and the chill music and various conversations between the characters as you're going from one place to another only heightens the enjoyment of traveling the sometimes long distances to your destination. Every moment playing is constantly being rewarded, so even playing for 30 minutes to an hour will probably provide a sense of progression. Sandland is pure adventure. Your attention is grabbed by the vehicular combat in large desert landscapes, but then you discover that the campaign, side missions, and pacing turn this unassuming anime game into a must-play epic. There's something here for all types of gamers to enjoy and get the most out of, and best of all, it's delivered in an accessible way to all skill types. I didn't expect to connect to this narrative or the cast, but by the end, I was deeply moved by their resolve and determination. It's ultimately a game about discovery, and I can't wait for everyone to discover how awesome this adventure is. Noisy Pixel is giving Sandland a 9 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up for all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.